I am the daughter of a dyslexic mom, and I'm a mom of 2 dyslexic boys. Don't know how it missed me, but it did. And tonight, I'm here to talk to you about some of the experiences I've had with learning differences. My husband and I knew at 12 months that my oldest son, had some issues. He wasn't hitting the milestones and wasn't quite talking correctly at the time we wanted him to and all that kind of stuff. So we weren't too much concerned then about labels, because labels meant that we got resources. It meant that people helped us, and we were really excited about that. We were like, yes, thank you for coming and helping us help our child. Well, as time progressed, things got a little bit more challenging, and we kind of changed our perspective about labels. But before I get there, let's talk a little bit about dyslexia. And let me debunk this myth. Most people think this is what dyslexic people see. It's not. And guess what? Dyslexic people can read. They can do anything. It's amazing. So, what I want you to know about dyslexia is this. People with dyslexia have trouble decoding words. In other words, they just can't sometimes figure out how to sound them out. They have trouble remembering words. A word that they see in one paragraph, it will elude them in the next paragraph. So there's some challenges there. But this isn't what it looks like, okay? So let's talk a little bit about learning disability versus learning difference. Learning disability is the word that we commonly hear today in education. That word frustrates me a little bit because if you think about it, let's break it down. Dis means not or apart from. Ability is the power or capacity to do something. So basically, if you're telling me that my child has a learning disability, you're telling me that my child can't learn. I like to take the tack with learning difference because it's hopeful. My children, both of them, the 2 sons, learn very differently, and we all learn differently. And it affects every part of our life. It affects education, it affects health, our social life, our social interactions, our careers, and our relationship. Now, you may be wondering, how does it affect health? Well, oftentimes, there are some issues that come along with having dyslexia. There can be a compromise to the immune system. I won't go into that. I'm not a doctor, a medical doctor of that sort. But there are definitely issues that we deal with through life. But here's the important part. Never discourage anyone who makes continual progress, no matter how slow. Okay, so let's talk about those learning differences for a minute here. I'll have you think about those. It's about hearing. It's about thinking. It's about talking. It's about writing. If you have some issues with writing. Okay, so here's what I do with my college class. We talk about educational philosophies. I teach Introduction to Education, and so some of these words I find are very hard for people to get out of their mouths. Did you know that it takes us about 12 exposures to learn a concept? So if you hear a word one time, we can't expect you to remember it. And if you don't even get to say the word, well, we haven't done a very good job of making it stick. So here's what I would do with my students. I would have them say words like existentialism, and I make them repeat it. Okay, so say it with me. Existentialism. 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 Okay, so it kind of feels funny, and you're like, oh, I feel like a little kid. But trust me, now that you have said it, you'll be able to get that word out much more effectively. If I don't do that, my students would go, existentialism. It just doesn't come out right. So definitely, that's some of the things that we can do in terms of learning. Okay, so let me get back to this. Here's kind of a little bit of fun. So along this journey for us, our family, we have learned all kinds of different things. We've laughed a lot. We've been challenged. But, one night at dinner, I was thinking about this quote. This is from Einstein. Everybody is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it's stupid. So, here's the question I ask my kids. Can a fish climb a tree? Oh, most of you said no. You know what my 13-year-old said? He said, sure. And I was like, oh, okay, good. Tell me about that. In its dreams, it can climb a tree. Huh, good thinking, huh? Yeah, it was pretty cool. But here, what if the tree was underwater? Could the fish climb a tree then? Okay, maybe not really because fish don't have hands and legs and all that stuff, but it could get up in the tree because we've changed the environment. And that's how we have to think differently. What environments do we have, okay? Now let me get back to my mom. Mom is amazing, but she was told that she was dumb but sweet, okay? At 50 years old, she found out that she was dyslexic. That explains it. Okay, so the woman is amazing. She's had 2 businesses. She has other jobs. She's done all kinds of things. You know what she does now in her spare time, now that she's retired? She has a dog, and she goes to school. And on Tuesdays, they visit with 800 children, and she works with the kids who have trouble with reading. Pretty cool, huh? Now, this is a person who's dyslexic. So there's hope. It's exciting. It's amazing. But now sometimes she struggles. There's some interesting stories, and growing up with it was quite entertaining at times. For example, we were always playing these guessing games. So here's how one would go. She could remember that it was the big yellow thing that took the kids to school, and it had a stop sign on it, and it was just absolutely, this thing. What was it? It was the bus. But she couldn't remember the word. She could not get her brain to where that word was. She had that challenge. So here's another example. We went out to lunch one day, and we're with my son, and she's trying to order, and she could not for the life of her remember the word. And my 8-year-old son gave her some great advice. He said, Coco, sometimes I forget words too. Just take a deep breath. Hey, we all need that. Keep calm and breathe, right? Sometimes we just need to say, in this crazy world we live in, let me just take a breath and give myself some time to think. And guess what? It worked. She remembered. French fries. She ordered her French fries. But we all have these challenges that we face every day, but we work through it and we figure out how to get over it. But now there is a name for this. It is called dysnomia. Anybody ever heard of that word before? I see a few little head shakes. Dysnomia, yes. So not everybody who's dyslexic has dysnomia, but some people do. It basically remembers that there's a challenge, or it basically is about having a challenge with finding words or recalling words. There's other things that folks can have that have dyslexia. They could have dyscalculia. That means they have trouble with numbers. Don't ask me, some people are like, don't ask me to add anything. I can't. I was like, oh yeah, that's me, right? We also have dysgraphia, which means it's really hard to get things from the brain onto a piece of paper. Now, one of my sons, oh my goodness, he's so amazing because he can watch a video for a few minutes, like watch a YouTube video or something, and immediately just repeat it to you. It's just crazy. Don't ask him to put it on paper. It will not happen. You'll get about 2 sentences, maybe, if you're lucky. So it's those differences we're talking about. My youngest son, he calls his brain the mystery maze. And he says things like, okay, hold on a minute, let me put it in the mystery maze and think about it. How clever is that? That he knows he needs time to think about it. So whether you're working with children or you're talking to a colleague, if somebody gets stuck on words, the easiest thing to do is give it to them. Now, sometimes people are offended by that. Other people are very appreciative because then you can just move on with the flow of what you're doing. So you kind of have to figure that out. That's fine. But one of the most important things I was talking about earlier is repetition. One of our speech therapists taught us, when you get in the car with the young children, when our children were very young and they were starting to learn to talk, we would turn off the radio. Oh, that was hard for me. I love my music. But we were to turn off the radio and we were to talk. When I first started doing it, my talking sounded like this. Blue sky. There's a cloud. There's another cloud. Oh, well, there goes a tree. And then I got better at it. Look at that car. Hey, that's a Honda. That's a Honda Accord. Look at it. It's 2 doors. It's a hatchback. My child now can name any car that goes by you on the highway just by the lights because of that. But it's that building that vocabulary that we need to do and doing it in different ways. And it doesn't cost any money. You can do it. Okay, now here's some other tools for these learning differences. How about a word bank? Word banks are great, whether you have a learning difference or not. If you're writing something, isn't it kind of boring if you said, he said, she said, they said? How about he described or he articulated? There's so many different words you can use. And wouldn't it be boring if we all said, good job, good job, good job? That doesn't mean anything. We can say, excellent report. Thank you for bringing me lunch. I mean, we can say all kinds of different things. So it's that using tools to help us and learning differently. So research has shown us, we get these functional MRIs that show us that the dyslexic brain is very different. Dyslexics are of average intelligence to above intelligence. It doesn't mean that they can't learn. It just means that they learn differently. And there's a lot of people who are undiagnosed, and I'm not saying that everybody that learns differently has dyslexia. That's not it at all. But I'm saying that whether you know what your challenges are or not, we all learn differently. We all need to talk. We all need to hear. We all need to think. We need to write. We need to type. There are just so many different ways that we can take in information and then share it back out with the world. I think Einstein said it best. I love Einstein quotes here. Education is what remains after one has forgotten what one has learned in school. My hope is that you will think about the ways in which you learn and the ways in which others around you learn, and think about the impact that you can make on our educational system to encourage us to use a multisensorial type of method where we're using multiple inputs and we're not so myopically focused on just doing things one way. So thank you very much for your time, and I appreciate you being here.